as you start to grow through your career, you're going to encounter a study, and you're going to be much more able critically to assess it.
And so when you see a research paper or you see some evidence for a new intervention in the medical world, you know what that means and whether it matters or whether it only applies to a small population, and so you just gain a lot more context.
Start from the first year working with their students and their prospectus, which is like a small research grant on their project, finishing up in their thesis.
So my message is, in doing research, you don't necessarily have to go after a new, better molecule or a new, better system. There may be ways to make an existing, proven item work better and safer with less side effects.
It's a pretty big problem. There's a lot of different ways to go about it, but what we really wanted to do was create a situation where we could map the brain while also using robotics to help train these children to gain back strength, but at the same time, as we're mapping the brain, we're looking where the issue is. We can see what parts of the brain or what neurons or nerves got damaged, and we can target those areas.
What we did is we delivered these proteins with laser or with viruses. We had two different ways of delivering them, and then we would use a light modulator, and the modulator would basically be an off switch. Wherever we delivered it in the pain pathway, we'd basically turn it off and we'd basically see how our mice would react. The way we would look at mice and see if they were in pain is we would look at whether or not they lifted their hind paw. Basically, if we injected their hind paw with either formalin or we cut off their sciatic nerve, we knew they would be in pain because formalin hurts, cutting your sciatic nerve hurts. So we would take a baseline and see how often they would lift up their hind paw, how often would they lick their hind paw, and then we would compare it to how often they'd lift their hind paw or lick their hind paw when our light was stimulated to see if our light had any effect.
Some of the things that we were looking at were, do patients have transportation to the clinic? If they are able to check their blood sugar, is there a shelter that doesn't let them bring that equipment in, or do they lose that equipment? And if they have, finances to buy good, nutritious food, do they have a place to store that food and then to cook that?
Our results showed that the mean compassion satisfaction scores actually decreased from pre-test to post-test assessments. And both the post-test burnout and secondary traumatic scores slightly increased. So it's actually the exact opposite of what we were thinking.
We found that it was, in fact, correlated, sleep and exercise, and the more they participated actively in the recreation, the more they were able to sleep. And then we did some surveys too afterwards and looked at their perception of sleep and if they thought they were getting good sleep and how that improved mental health.
The other thing you've done is you're helping Fort Worth grow up academically. So mentors have been great for you. You've been great for the mentors.